Still going, old man? Gunning for a medal with that mower? A young soldier teased as an older man trimmed the grass near the barracks gate. The man simply smiled, lined face calm, quiet and largely ignored. But moments later, when a colonel's heel pulled up and immediately stood at attention, the joke stopped. The man with the mower wasn't just a groundskeeper. He was once the one who led them through fire. If you believe leadership is earned through action, not titles, give a salute. Every morning at 6 a.m., those stationed at Fort Ashton would see him. An old man in faded combat boots slowly pushing a battered Toro mower along the road that edged the barracks. The mower, nearly as old as its operator, chugged on despite the wear and tear, just like him. Most passed by without a second glance. Some assumed he was a retiree picking up extra cash. Others thought he was a veteran clinging to routine. A few figured he was simply lost in old habits. He never drew a paycheck. The base had outsourced groundskeeping years ago, yet he kept showing it up, trimming spots others missed, fixing signs, picking up trash. Routine keeps the mind sharp, he'd murmur to anyone who greeted him. His voice, though aged, was steady, like stone smoothed by running water. Young soldiers passed him, daily. A few nodded. Most didn't bother. Some mocked him behind his back. Thinks he's still enlisted, one muttered. Probably washed out as a PFC and now plays pretend. A newly transferred sergeant cracked a joke during morning PT. Pique it up, ladies. Don't make me call in the old guy with the mower to whip you into shape. The old man said nothing. He only adjusted his cap, plain army green. No rank, no patch. Just fabric worn by years of sun and rain. That Wednesday morning, as the anthem played at 0800, he stopped mowing and stood at full attention near the flagpole. His body instinctively straightened, decades slipping away as military discipline took hold. A group of recruits nearby chuckled. One even snapped a photo, tagged it Stolen Valor, and posted it online. Still, the old man finished as he always did, wiping down his mower before tucking it away in the small shed by the side gate. Hippahui left the base the same way he had always come, quietly, with a calm dignity untouched by the whispers or mockery around him. He never said a word to those who had laughed at him. Few knew the truth. His name was Richard Hale. Decades earlier, he hadn't worn grass stains but stars, command stars on his shoulders. He had led battalions in Vietnam, directed rescue missions in Grenada, and at one point commanded Fort Ashton itself during its busiest era. But that was another lifetime. Now, to most, he was just an old man with a mower. Rumors had spread about the strange elderly man mowing the barracks lawn for free. For many of the younger recruits, he became a running joke, a kind of unofficial mascot, a harmless oddball to laugh about during downtime. There goes the General of Grass, they'd chuckle, sometimes offering mock salutes as he passed. By the photo posted online, captioned with sarcasm, quickly circulated through military forums. Some veterans reacted with concern, speculating about mental health or a homeless vet clinging to identity. Others expressed unease about the implications. Eventually, someone escalated the matter formally. A complaint was filed with the base administration. A civilian, identity unknown, was regularly seen within base boundaries without credentials. He had direct access to sensitive areas like the barracks entrance. With modern security protocols stricter than ever, such a situation couldn't be overlooked. The days of open gates and familiar locals wandering onto base were long gone. Meetings were held, forms submitted, procedures cited. On Friday morning, base security was dispatched. 2 young military police officers found him near the parade ground, carefully edging the grass with his usual quiet precision. One stepped forward cautiously. "Sir, we need to see your base access credentials," he said, hand instinctively hovering near his holster. The old man straightened slowly, dabbing sweat from his brow with a weathered handkerchief. "Don't have any current ones," he said plainly. "Never needed them before." "You can't be on base without proper clearance," the second MP said, tone firm but respectful. "How have you been getting in every day?" "I walked through the side gate," the old man replied simply. "Been doing it for 7 years." The 2 MPs exchanged a look. "That gate was supposed to be monitored and locked at all times. Sir, we'll need you to come with us to the security office to clear this up." The old man nodded, powered down his mower and followed them without complaint. Inside, a young lieutenant reviewed what little information they could find. "You're not on any contractor list. You don't have a work badge. You can't just come on base," he said with the tired patience reserved for someone dealing with a confused elder. Without a word, the old man reached into his back pocket and handed over a folded, yellowing document. His Army retirement papers dated 1987. "I served here once," he said quietly. "Just trying to keep the place sharp." General Matthews knew. So did Colonel Bergman. The officers glanced at the name on the form, Richard Hale, but didn't notice the rank. Matthews and Bergman had long since moved on. "Look, Mr. Hale," the lieutenant said, "we appreciate your service, but this paper doesn't give you access anymore. Things have changed." He was escorted off base. The mower was logged as abandoned government property and impounded. He didn't protest. He simply walked out through the main gate, giving a respectful nod to the guards who watched him go, puzzled. That weekend, a photo surfaced online. Him being escorted away, mower missing, taken by one of the same recruits who used to mock him. It spread quickly. Comments poured in across military forums. Many were sympathetic. "Leave the old guy alone. He's not hurting anyone. Just wants to stay connected." Bet he served more than half the ones laughing at him. But one comment stood out, posted from a verified account. "That's Lieutenant General Richard Hale, former commander of the 3rd Infantry Division, recipient of the Distinguished Service Cross and Silver Star. I served under him in operations Urgent Fury. He ran Fort Ashton from 1982 to 1987. This is disgraceful." It was written by Colonel David Rohr, the current commanding officer of Fort Ashton, just back from Pentagon briefings. That Monday, at exactly 0800 hours, 3 Humvees rolled into the small town just outside the base. They stopped in front of a modest, single-story house identified in property records as belonging to Richard Hale. Soldiers stepped out and secured the area with the quiet precision of practiced protocol. Then Colonel Rohr emerged and walked up to the porch where Hale sat sipping his morning coffee. "General Hale?" he asked, stopping at the bottom of the steps. The old man stood, recognition flickering in his eyes. "Rohr, good to see you back." "Sir, I just found out what happened." "Why didn't you tell them who you were?" Hale took a slow sip, weighing the question like he once weighed battlefield choices. "If they can't see it," he said finally, "they're not ready to follow it." That afternoon, Colonel Rohr called for an emergency assembly at Fort Ashton. At 1400 hours, messages pinged across every screen and phone on base. Mandatory formation. 1400. Full dress uniform. Parade ground. No exceptions. The order spread quickly, sparking speculation across Fort Ashton. Some thought it was a surprise inspection. Others braced for bad news, maybe budget cuts, maybe deployment orders. No one imagined it had anything to do with the quiet old man who had been escorted off base just days earlier. At precisely 1400 hours beneath the unforgiving Texas sun, the full personnel of Fort Ashton, rookies and senior officers alike, stood. In formation on the very parade ground the old man had faithfully maintained for years. Colonel Rohr stood on the reviewing platform, face unreadable behind mirrored sunglasses. Beside him sat a single empty chair. At 1405, a civilian van rolled to a stop at the edge of the field. The driver, a sergeant in full dress uniform, stepped out and opened the door with sharp, deliberate formality. Richard Hale stepped down. Same worn boots, same dusty work pants. The only difference, instead of his usual t-shirt, he wore a faded blue button-down. Still quiet. Still steady. A murmur passed through the formation. Confused, uncertain. But it died instantly under the sharp eyes of NCOs. Colonel Rohr stepped to the mic. "Attention to orders." The formation stiffened to full attention. "For those who don't know me, I'm Colonel David Rohr, commander of Fort Ashton. I've just returned from 2 weeks of Pentagon briefings. And in that time something happened here. Something that violated not just protocol, but principle." He paused, then turned toward the man standing quietly beside the platform. "This man," he said, voice steady, "led soldiers through the jungles of Vietnam and the shores of Grenada. He wrote the survival manual many of you still train with today. He commanded this installation from 1982 to 1987 as a 3-star general." Colonel Rohr continued. Under his leadership, Fort Ashton rose to become the top training facility in the Army's Southern Command. A heavy silence settled over the parade ground. Slowly, realization dawned on the assembled ranks. For 7 years, Lieutenant General Richard Hale had quietly maintained the base's grounds. Not because he had to, but because he believed in the principles he had once taught, that a leader's duty never truly ends. The soldiers who had once Laughed now stood rigid, pale-faced, unable to meet the eyes of the man they had dismissed. Colonel Rohr stepped down from the platform and walked directly to Hale. Then, in front of the entire base, he snapped a crisp salute that cut through the air like a blade. "Permission to keep following your example, sir?" he asked loud and clear. Hale returned the salute, a flicker of emotion flashing in his steel-grey eyes. "Permission granted, Colonel." One by one, the battalion commanders came forward, saluting the man in dusty boots and work clothes with the same reverence. They would show a decorated general. Then something unexpected happened. A young private broke formation. It was Jenkins, the same soldier who had posted the mocking photo online. He marched forward, stopped at the proper distance, and raised a salute. "Sir, I'm sorry for what I said." "For what I posted?" "I didn't know." Hale looked him over without judgment. "You only said what you saw, Private," he replied calmly. "Next time, look harder. The uniform doesn't make the soldier makes the uniform." Jenkins nodded, blinking rapidly, fighting back more than just the glare of the sun. That evening, as the base returned to its routine, a small ceremony was held at the side gate, the entrance Hale had used daily. A bronze plaque was unveiled by Colonel Rohr in honor of Lieutenant General Richard Hale, who never stopped watching over us. Beside it stood his old mower, recovered from storage and placed on a simple pedestal. What was once a source of ridicule was now a lasting symbol of service and humility. The soldiers who had once laughed the loudest were now assigned to the groundskeeping duties Hale had performed for years, not as punishment but as a lesson. "You'll learn the difference between keeping up appearances and upholding standards," their sergeant told them. The general understood that. "Now you will too." General Hale never returned to mow the grass again. He didn't have to. At 0600 each morning, rotating squads of soldiers took over the responsibility, paying special attention to the areas he had so carefully maintained. Along the barracks road, around the flagpole, near the memorials. They worked in silence, a quiet tribute to the man who had done it all without recognition or reward. When someone later asked if he missed his old routine, Hale just smiled. "Leadership isn't about being seen doing the work," he said. "It's about making sure the work gets done right, even when you're not there." Colonel Rohr established a new tradition at Fort Ashton. Every week, a new recruit would read General Hale's full service record as part of their orientation. As they studied his battlefield heroics and peacetime innovations, they were told, "This is what honor looks like in work boots." Private Jenkins, the soldier whose careless post had unintentionally led to the general's recognition, later asked permission to interview Hale for the base newsletter. The resulting article became required reading for all new personnel. When asked why he never corrected anyone or revealed his identity, the general's response was characteristically simple. "Respect that comes from rank is protocol. Respect that comes from action. That's leadership." Those were General Hale's words when asked why he had never revealed his identity. "I wanted to see which one this base truly valued," he said. On Veterans Day, Colonel Rohr invited Hale to be the guest of honor at Fort Ashton's annual ceremony. At first, the general was hesitant, but he eventually agreed. His speech, delivered to a crowd of soldiers, families, and veterans, consisted of a single sentence. "The best commanders lead when no one's watching." There was a pause. Then the crowd rose to its feet. Many wiped tears from their eyes as they saluted the quiet man who had never asked for recognition but had spent 7 silent years giving a living masterclass in leadership. Hale's story didn't end at Fort Ashton. It spread throughout the Army, then across other branches of service. Leadership schools began incorporating it into training programs, and his name became synonymous with humility, integrity, and duty. A new tradition took root at Fort Ashton. At the end of every day, the youngest soldier on duty walks to the gate, where the general's plaque stands. There they come to attention, render a crisp salute, and whisper 5 words that Richard Hale once said when asked why he kept mowing the grass. "I never left my post." Future generations of soldiers may never meet the old man with the mower. They might never hear his weathered voice or see his calloused hands hardened by a lifetime of service, first in combat, then in quiet, selfless labor. But they will learn what he came to teach, that leadership isn't measured by stripes or stars. It's measured by presence, by consistency, by showing up every day, without being asked, without applause, and doing what needs to be done. If you believe real rank is earned in silence and remembered in service, share this story. Subscribe to Story Delivery Man.